This is brought to you by the Gjgrc Grassroots Collective, a progressive organization in the new African independence movement that cultivates revolutionary transfer culture, liberating the minds through awareness and education, protecting and training our people while fostering unity as stated in the Code of Umoja. Welcome to the Gjgrc Grassroots Collective Dialogue Session.
Free the land. My name is Abdullah Ghazi, National Chairman of the Gjgrc Grassroots Collective. And today we have a very special guest. Please announce yourself, Chairman. Tell us where you're from and tell us what your organization is all about.
Hey, peace and power, family. It's Brother Elijah Miles, Chairman and founder of Tendea family, where our hood is our job and our people are most definitely our purpose. We down here in Baltimore City, based in Baltimore City, and we're a grassroots organization that works, trying our best to walk in the footsteps of those great organizers that came in the past. We like to say that we're not recreating the real. We just trying to, carry on the post, carry on the duty, carry on the responsibility that was passed down to the next generation. And so we do grassroots work. We do safe passage work, walking kids home from school, protecting our community as men and women. We do work on the weekends with kids called the Cadet Program to make sure our kids know who they are and know their responsibility to self, family, and community. We do community cleanups, we do food pantries, but all with the ultimate goal of the Black community in Baltimore City to rise. And so the work that have been done before us with UNIA, with the Black Panther Party, with organizers for hundreds of years, Tendea family would like to carry on that work and hold the line, because with the destruction of those great organizations in the 60s and the 70s and with the crack epidemic, there's been a wasteland in the organizing field. And so for us as young people picking up that torch that no one wants to pick up, Tendea family in this modern day is just striving to do that work and carry on those work so that we can ultimately reach independence, sovereignty, and liberation.
Free the land. Very well articulated. I have a question for you. I'm very interested in the people that influence your organization. Can you please tell me a good breakdown of what influenced you and your organization?
So I'll talk personally, and then I talk, from like collective ancestors a little bit later. So one, I'm born and raised in Baltimore City in the neighborhood that we now work called Down the Hill. It's an East Baltimore neighborhood. The technical name is McElderly Park, and it's one of the most treacherous neighborhoods in East Baltimore. And so I grew up like most Black boys that grow up in big cities grew up, where you grow up, identifying fully with your neighborhood. You grow up wanting to be a part of the streets because that's what's marketed to you. You grow up wanting to be part of the local street tribes or gangs, as they call them. And so I wanted to do all of that. And I didn't know who I was and what I wanted to do, but I wanted to put on for my neighborhood, because for me, that was my people. But then it wasn't until I got to 7th grade and I had a teacher named Mr. Scott. And Mr. Scott was this freeform dread-having Black man. And me being from East Baltimore, I never met Jamaicans. And so I was like, man, Mr. Scott must be a Jamaican, because the image of Jamaicans is like, Bob Marley. And so I never forget Mr. Scott, when I was in the 7th grade, he had this red, black, and green flag on his desk. And this is when they still had the big back computers. And I asked Mr. Scott one day, whose flag is that? And I never forget Mr. Scott stopped what he was doing and he turned towards me and said, man, Elijah, that's your flag. And he began to break down to me what the flag meant. And that moment is so important to me, because that moment changed my life. Because after that moment, I can no longer just identify with my neighborhood. I'm definitely from Baltimore City. I'm definitely from down the hill, but I can no longer just identify as that. I can no longer even just identify as a Black boy from Baltimore City, because the flag that Mr. Scott broke down to me and the subsequent information and history he broke down to me in days to come, it showed me that, man, I'm a Black man that's connected to all Black people around the world. And I have a responsibility to those Black people around the world. And so Mr. Scott began to make me read the autobiography of Malcolm X. He made me write papers on Marcus Garvey. He made me read Man Child in the Promised Land, Richard Wright, Black Boy, and made me read all these books that began to give me and shape me an identity. And so from that point to this, I said, man, I don't know what I'm going to do with my life, but I'm going to do something to impact Black people and to impact my community. And so that's how it began. And so when I began, so speaking to that second part of the question of, like, you know, outside of the person who inspired our work, it's all those organizations. So like when I learned about Marcus Garvey and the UNIA, and I saw, man, you know, Black men that had to work, you know, the slave master job, but was proud to put on that UNIA uniform. When I saw the Black Panther Party and how you had these courageous Black men and women that not only, they wasn't just one leader, it was leaders across the country and leaders in various different organizations, various different chapters and organizations around the country with the Black Panther Party. And so all of these organizations were inspiring me. And what gave me pause is when I looked at 2024 or 2015 back at that time, I was like, man, where's the organizations like that today? Because if you go back to the 60s and the 65 and the 70s, there was so many different organizations to choose from. Some organizations that we would consider Negro type organizations, but other organizations that were at the forefront. And it was these differences, but it was everybody had all hands on deck fighting for the people at that moment. And those organizations inspired me then, and those organizations inspire us in our work now. And so we got inspiration from all of those organizations. We got lessons from all of those organizations, things to do, but things certainly not to do. And still to this day, you know, Tendea family and all the members in Tendea family, you know, we emphasize study and studying the work that happened before us and studying the work that we need to continue to do. So those are the couple people and couple things that inspired me.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You said some very good points in that. You said some things that me and you both share. Like, where is these organizations that was like the 60s and 70s, like RAM, like the Black Panther, like the original Black Panther parties of the 60s and 70s, and multiple other organizations that was extremely aggressive. What happened? Well, you kind of said it a little bit due to, you know, the 80s and the, you know, and the drugs and everything to that nature of how the government just went straight to war with our leaders, locking them up, killing them, and just tearing up our leadership from the top to the bottom. But now today, we're still here to bring the education to the people and show them an example. Could you tell me the importance of education during this time right now? Political education.
Man, education, man, is so important because we live in a society that's constantly practicing propaganda on us, that's pushing propaganda, that's marketing to us manhood, that's marketing to us womanhood, that's marketing to us Blackness. And so part of what Mr. Scott in the 7th grade began to correct with me is that the Blackness and the Black manhood that was marketed to me was to be a real Black man is to be a killer, a robber, and a drug dealer, to be a destroyer of your community, a destroyer of your people. And the manhood, the Blackness that Mr. Scott introduced me using Malcolm X and even Martin Luther King and Marcus Garvey and the Huey P. Newtons, like he marketed to me that no, to be a real Black man is the person that protects, provides, and serves his community to the best of his ability. And so education is so important is because our kids are being educated into something. They're being miseducated, as Carter G. Woodson would say, into an identity that's contrary to what we want in our community. And if we don't educate our youth and educate, matter of fact, our adults on what's going on with our community, but also who we are, then we can't expect that when election time come, or when a Freddie Gray situation come, or a George Floyd situation come, that we do something different. We haven't been educated to do something different when these moments happen. We haven't been educated to organize and unify and fight for our people. We haven't been educated to do any of that. And so what Tendea does is, through 3 different programs, we educate adults and children. We have a man-to-man program that's exclusively for Black men. We have a Sisters Dinner program that happens every week that's for Black women. And we have the Tendea Cadet program that's for Black children, and it's all centered around identity and education. Because in order for them to do better, they got to know better. And that's part of what we have to supply. So any organization and any organizers around the country that are wanting the Black community or the African community, however you identify us, anybody that wants our community to be in a better place and is not doing the work of education is foolish. You're doing it the wrong way, because there's no way we're going to get to whatever you believe the solution is without education. This education system, as you saw the movie where they clone Tyrone, this education system in this society produces Tyrones and Tinas out of us. And so the city girls, the Meg Thee Stallions, the NBA young boys, this society produces them over and over and over again, not just through the education system, but through the media, the music, and just the society in general. And the only way to reverse that is through education. And lastly, I'll close this point on this, brother, is that there has to be like a real rerouting of this mindset, this identity. But the problem, brother, is that organizations like Tendea Family, organizations that claim to be nationalists or conscious or revolutionary, what we find is that many of these organizations and organizers don't love Black people. Or maybe don't love Black people that don't know. It's an irritant. Black people that don't know, that are unconscious, that are fighting against their own people. A lot of conscious organizations don't have enough love to serve those people. Don't have enough love to meet the person that's addicted to drugs where they are and bring them from that place. We love Malcolm X, but a lot of people don't got enough love to meet the Detroit Red where he's at and make him Malcolm X, or transform him and put him through a process to become Malcolm X. We could be burnt out. We could be just upset about the situation that we in as a people. But what we find a lot of times is that we don't understand enough about miseducation and empathize enough with people that don't know to serve them so that they can know. And that's the work that Tendea strives to do and model for other organizations like us, is that we wave the red, black, and green flag. We nationalists, we fighting for our people, but we're not so in our awareness that we can't meet people where they are and bring them to where we are. So that's part of what I would say about education and whatnot.
Yes, sir. Very powerful words. Yes, sir. You are highly educated. You most definitely an intellectual in this field, in this arena. A question I have to ask. Let's talk more about yourself and your organization. Let's just go back to that real quick so people can know what your organization is all about who don't know. Where did you get that name from, and why do you use it? Can you give me a backstory of that name?
Yep. So I give you a piece of history too. So back in 2015, Baltimore City had one of the most historic events happen here, and that was the Freddie Gray uprisings. But back in 2015, I was still in college, and kind of newly in college too. Only been there for like a year and a half. And so when we were in 2015, when the Freddie Gray uprisings happened, when CNN came to Baltimore City, because we're a small city, we don't get a lot of press. People don't come here. But when CNN came to Baltimore City, when MSNBC came to Baltimore City, when the so-called civil rights legends came to Baltimore City, some of us, especially with the uprising happening, we thought, man, things is about to change. Man, if a revolution is going to take place, this is what it looked like. Things is about to completely shift. It ain't never going to be the same again. And I remember that it was a report on CNN. I think they said that, like, you know, this is the average household, like, income of a family that live in Sandtown where the riots happen or the uprisings happen. And they said this is the average educational level. And they was talking about all the problems of a family that would live in Sandtown, Winchester. And so everybody had this feeling that things is going to shift. And I ain't going to lie, Baltimore was so lit at the time, I even had the feeling that, man, things will never be the same. But after the cameras went back to where they were, after the so-called civil rights legends went back to where they came from, things went back to the same. And as Jelani would know, because he's from Baltimore, that you go to Pennsylvania, North Avenue right now, things are still the same. It might be worse. It might be worse after the uprisings. And so after that, we said, man, we need to not only talk about it, we need to build an organization like those organizations in the past. And that's how Tendea got started. Not as a direct response but to police brutality, but as a direct response to saying, man, if we want change like they wanted to change before, it's going to take an organization working day in and day out, week in and week out, year after year to make things just a little bit better. And so we started organizing. And for the long time, guys, we didn't have a name for the organization for a long time, for like probably a year and a half. We didn't have a name for the organization. We used to just call it the organization, the org, because we had saw other organizations in the past not just, you know, identify with the organization so much that they disidentify with being Black. And we didn't want to put the organization over the people. So we was like, we ain't going to name it nothing. That's how revolutionary we are. We ain't going to name the organization anything. But then we kept calling it the org. So the org turned into a name in itself. So we said, man, we got to name this thing. And I'll never forget, we had a meeting in the Morgan State Library. And we were throwing around names and we said, man, we need something that identifies with us as African people. But we also need something that identifies with the streets. And so we had a sister that was from Kenya that was a part of the organization. And we said, we want to use the word hustle. We want to use the phrase hustle. And she said, where I come from, as slang, Tendea means hustle. So we would say Tendea, Tendea. And so that became our name. So Tendea, and a short answer to your short question, well, long answer to your short question, Tendea means hustle, and hustle is the acronym for our founding principles: honor, unity, sacrifice, trust, love, and excellence. And so that became our founding principles of the organization. And the principles we still strive to hold up in our work and all the ways that we do the work. So a little history, but also that's how Tendea got his name.
Yes, sir. That's very beautiful. That's very beautiful. I would like to go into one thing as well, so people can understand what your organization is about. Let's go a little bit into what people should know about your political line, so there's no confusion. Can you tell people your political line?
So I would say Tendea Family is a Pan-African nationalist organization that seeks the Black community to become to have solid families, a true community, and a noble nation. So we're a nationalist organization that believes that Black people should have a nation of their own, and that nation should be righteous and noble and upright. So in that way, we would fall in line with the goals of many of the organizations that came in the past that was on a revolutionary tip. However, we do feel that it steps towards that eventual goal. And if that goal comes in our lifetime, it comes in our lifetime. But there's steps that we have to do. And as we were talking before, or y'all were talking as I overheard y'all before the call, that's why we say solid family, true communities, and a noble nation. So a lot of organizers around the country have the goal of us having that. But before we get there, we have to have solid families. We have to have Black men and women in relationships and knowing how to raise families. We have to have a culture that's worth not only just having and practicing, but protecting and fighting for. We have to have some key elements in place, and then it makes the possibility for a separation to happen. Emil Cabral said that no people can do a revolution if their culture is identical to the people they're trying to free themselves from. And so for us, this thing that we want at the end of the line, it has to come about in some critical steps. And so Tendea family is building upon those things to make our community, make our people ready for that type of thing. Because if we were given what we want, which is a nation, tomorrow, we don't have the cultural infrastructure to maintain it. And that's just the reality. Many of us are enemies to ourselves and enemies to our communities and enemies to our families. A lot of us can't even maintain good relationships with the opposite sex. We got the red pill community that hate Black women, and we got the Black feminists that hate Black men. So if we got a nation tomorrow, we wouldn't be able to maintain it because we don't have the cultural and the moral practices to maintain it. And so for us, we believe it comes about in a couple of steps, but the goal of Tendea is the goal of many nationalist organizations. It's just we take a certain route to get there, in a route that many people, you may not even, understand what Tendea is up to. When we do a community cleanup, it's like, man, how does that lead towards Noble Nation? They're cleaning up a neighborhood, and that neighborhood is just going to put trash back down. But it's a practical demonstration of unity in the same way that when the Black Panther Party did the free breakfast for children, they didn't think kids wasn't going to get hungry again. But it's a practical demonstration of unity because if the people don't understand Pan-Africanism, they may not understand the red, black, and green. They may not understand the history of the work that we're doing today, but they understand a clean neighborhood. They understand food for their kids. And then that causes a dichotomy where they see that, man, how is this organization who's unelected, not elected by the Democrats or the Republicans, not an elected force in our community? How is this organization doing more for me than the government is doing? How is this organization doing more for me than these elected forces are doing? And that creates a dichotomy that say, man, what if organization or Black people in general can govern ourselves better than the current United States government? So long story short is that Tendea has the goal and the end goal of many organizations that came before us and many organizations that are around now. But the route that we take sometimes throws people for a loop, and they don't understand what they're doing because they don't understand what we're doing because I would say in some sense, a lot of people put the cart before the horse. So that's if that's clear, that would be my answer to the question.
Yes, sir. That's extremely clear. You brought up a lot of good points, and it's going to sound kind of repetitive, but sometimes people need to learn. That's how people learn if you tell it to them multiple times. But I would like you to add emphasis on two things. What is nationalism and the importance of a family unit to you?
So starting with the second part first. So Tendea, we believe that Black people, in order to get to a better place, we need solid Black families, practicing a true Black culture and fighting to push Black people forward. So we need solid Black families, Black men and women that are within, I'm speaking now the nuclear family, not the extended family. We need Black men and women that are within families that are producing children, and that family, man, woman, and children, exists to fight to push the community forward, to fight to better the community. That's core to Tendea's belief. And the reason why that's necessary is because we have churches in the Black community that have passed down Christianity for 150 years on this land. We have mosques and masjids in the Black community that have passed down Islam year after year after year, generation after generation. But we don't have many conscious Black organizations that have passed down this work generation after generation. Now, we know it's because the powers that be, we know because of COINTELPRO, we know because it's been an assault on Black organizations and Black leaderships that produces this as the case. However, it's also because when you look at the history of the Black Panther Party, they didn't have a real belief on family. A lot of them didn't even think they would live long to see family. And so as you read their memoirs and their books about what they say of family in relation to the Black Panther Party is that they was revolutionaries first, and it was in conflict with being a mother and a father. And so a lot of them abandoned their kids. And so you end up with a documentary that comes out that say Bastards of the Party, where the Bloods and the Crips are the off-breds of these organizational, these revolutionary forces that came before them. But a lot of the kids that came from the Black Panther Party directly from party members, but also the community itself, was abandoned. Those kids were abandoned because we were trying to do the work. And so Tendea family believes that there is no dichotomy between mother and father in freedom fighter, mother and father in liberator, mother and father in a person that's serving the community. Those things are not against each other. You know, they're one and the same. That to be in a world like this, to be a Black father, fighting to push your community forward and fighting to raise your kids to do the same is revolutionary. And so that's our position on family. And so because of that, Tendea family is a proponent of marriage, that Black men and women should commit themselves in long-term commitments. You don't have to go through the government, but you should have a ceremony in front of a community of people that you love, committing yourself for a lifetime. We're a proponent of raising your kids in a way to carry on this work. And yeah, we're a proponent that family, if this don't last, if this don't be passed down to family, it won't be passed down at all. So that's on the part of family. So nationalism, and let me know if I go too fast. Sometimes I talk too fast. Nationalism, on a point about nationalism, so nationalism is the belief, Black nationalism is the belief that Black people need, deserve, and should desire and fight for their own nation. That because of all of the stuff we went through in slavery and segregation and colonization and colonialism and all of these things that happened to us, that the only way that Black people will ever be fully able to protect ourselves and project ourselves and our culture is by having our own nation. And so Tendea family is a proponent of that. And not only should we have a future nation, you know, that may take place, or we may get it in years to come, but because we believe in nationalism, you should behave as a nation now. So you should behave to other Black people as a nation. So I shouldn't disrespect this Black man or desire to kill this Black man because he stepped on my shoes. Because that Black man is my brother, because we're part of the same nation. We're part of the same family. And because we're part of the same family, it doesn't benefit us to kill each other and harm each other for no reason when we behind enemy lines, when we on somebody else's soil. So nationalism also is a behavioral system of like, if we believe we should have our own nation, we have to behave as family and as brothers and sisters with people that's a part of our nation today and fight for their uplift, fight for them to get to a better place, fight for them to be secure and sovereign in their lives. So nationalism and family.
Yes, sir. Very good answers. One thing good about your organization, what caught everybody's eye, is the initiatives, the boots on the ground. That's what caught the world's eyes. That's what caught Baltimore's eyes. That's what caught Maryland's eyes. That's what caught Chicago, Atlanta, LA, and everybody's eyes to focus on this family. Could you please tell me the different kinds of initiatives that you have to service the people?
Most definitely. So I spoke about some of them before, but I'll expound. So every week, Tendea family, we run the most consistent community cleanup in the city. So every Sunday, 12 to 2, we run a community cleanup. And as we said before, the reason we do that is because it's a practical demonstration of unity. It's practical work that everybody, man, woman, child, elder, can be included in. So we got the community cleanup every week. We also had a cadet program. For those that don't know, liberation schools or don't have nothing to compare it to think about the cadet program, you could think about as a Black Boy Scouts or Black Girl Scouts. Whereas the Boy Scouts and the Girl Scouts, they guide mostly white children, to make fires, to survive in the forest. The cadet program teaches Black kids to survive in the urban environment through organizing, teaching them how to organize, teaching them how to public speak, teaching them how to do programming, teaching them how to organize themselves as Black men and Black women and fight for their people. And so we do a cadet program also weekly. We do, as I mentioned before, we do Man to Man, which is our men's program weekly. And that's about manhood, making sure that we have a healthy Black manhood that we can use as a weapon to push our community forward. Not a European definition of manhood, but a righteous, noble, and Black definition of manhood. So that happens. Man to Man happens weekly. We also have the Sisters Dinner that happens weekly, which is our women's program that's for Black women and girls. We have some of the women on the call, we have some excellent Black women in Tendea family. And the Black woman doesn't stand behind the Black man in Tendea family. They stand side by side, working in complementary roles to push our community forward. And so the Sisters Dinner does an excellent job about mobilizing and galvanizing Black women and girls to think about the issues that they're suffering as Black women and girls, but also the part that they need to play or want to play or have a duty to play in pushing our community forward. So that happens every week. We in baby bookings. We with the young men that are incarcerated. Our baby bookings is youth prisons, youth detention centers. We in baby bookings every week, engaging with Black boys to let them know that when you get out of here, why you got here, explaining to them how the dynamics that got them there, but also when you get out of here, connect with us, connect with Tendea family. We got some work to do. So we do a lot of on the ground actions. We do rallies. We do emergency response. We do the after school patrol program. That happens not only weekly, that happens daily on school days, protecting our kids as they get off as they leave in school, to make sure that our kids are protected and safe and willing to lose our lives or take a life to be able to make sure that our kids get home safe because their parents sent them to school safe. And that's important because we need community control over public safety. We need to take back public safety. If we want to defund the police, which I'm not against, we gotta be able to replace the protective measures that seem to be there by the police. That's not always there anyway. So we do the after school patrol program daily. It's so many programs. And lastly, I'll not speak about programs, but the importance of programs. Like the boots on the ground work, for all the organizers that could be listening, the boots on the ground work is essential. Essential. Black people don't understand the ideologies that drive organizations like this, but they understand the practical things that we do to serve them. And so if you can't show them tangibly the service that you're offering, how it would be better on this side of the world, on this side of the people, then you're not going to keep them. So that's what Tendea is about. It's about, we have the ideology, we studying the history, we're moving with the right ideals and values, but We have to be practical in serving the people and doing everything we possibly can to make sure that their condition gets better. And then when they ask, man, why you do that for me? Why'd you do all this for our community? You could say it's because I'm a nationalist. You could say it's because I'm a revolutionary. You could say it's because I love black. Whatever you want to say then, you can say it then. But people have to know that we're willing to serve as our ancestors before us served. And that's what they can understand. And I give this example, and then, in this point is, I think it was in Elaine Brown's book, Taste of Power, about the Black Panther Party, where she was talking about that, like, when they asked, the police would pull up and ask them about communism, and they didn't understand communism. The people that went to the Free Breakfast for Children program, their parents didn't understand communism when they were asked, are you a communist? But what they did understand is that the Free Breakfast for Children program fed their kid. And if you mess with the Free Breakfast for Children program, you got to mess with us. But they don't understand communism. And Chairman Fred Hampton Jr. talked about that too. But so that's what we have to realize as organizers, is that they don't understand your ideology. What they do understand is service. And if you are being guided by this strong ideology, then it should be presented in service. Or else we can't complain about what the church ain't doing, what the mosque ain't doing, what the masjid ain't doing, if we ain't serving the people any better in a tangible way. So that's Tendea family and our programs and our work.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I like how you said being practical and changing concrete material conditions. That's a lot of things. That's what's missing nowadays. A lot of people just want to propagate with their organizations and things of that nature, and some of them neglect the people, which your organization has not. As we go into Baltimore and Maryland and the boots on the ground, can you tell me what is the problems y'all face? What is the issues y'all face in Baltimore, Maryland, and what can we do to help?
So Baltimore City, like major big Black cities, face similar problems. So Baltimore City, maybe even still today, but for a long time was known as the heroin capital of the country. And so we not only got hit hard, as Michelle Alexander said in New Jim Crow, we not only got hit hard by the crack epidemic. She said that the crack epidemic hit the Black community like the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. We not only got hit hard by the crack epidemic, but Baltimore City got hit particularly hard and have been hit particularly hard by heroin. And so we know, and brothers and sisters that live in Baltimore City know, that if you go in some neighborhoods, if a man or a woman is above a certain age, they're elder, at least half of them are on drugs, some type of drug. And so drugs is a real issue in our community. And related to drugs is drug dealing. And related to drug dealing is violence. And so all of those issues exist in Baltimore City's Black community. Just how they exist in Chicago, just how they exist in Detroit, just how they exist in all these other places. But I want everybody to know that there's things that we could do to fight back. There's things that we can do about those situations no matter where we are and where our people are at. And that's through service. So in violence, man, we can organize ourselves as Black men and women and push back against the forces that are in our community that may be negative. We can first offer those forces, man, hey, take this job, man. Let me hook you up with this job. Let me hook you up with these resources. If you need drug treatment, let's get you to this drug treatment program. But if all of that don't work, we need to be organized enough to say, hey, man, we're not going to sell no more drugs in this neighborhood. And that's the conversation that many of us don't want to have, and that's the actions that many of us don't want to do. But there's things that we can do to push back against all these things. So we got the issue of drugs. We got the issue of violence. We got the issue of drug use and drug dealing. But we also got the issue of miseducation, where all of our kids have the choice in Baltimore City between public school, private school. There ain't no black schools. So you either going to go to Gilman or Calvert Hall, or you're going to go to Patterson or Emerson. So it's going to be some public school or some private school. And part of the issue with that is that you send them to this private school, now they're around white people, getting a white education and becoming white. But if you send them to public school, now they're in danger. Because these public schools, they ain't learning nothing. They ain't learning basic arithmetic. The average senior in Baltimore City can't write or read or spell or do math, as the test results prove. So you got this choice that's really not a choice. And so we could do something about that also. It's why Tendea does the cadet program, is that we can educate our own children and we could put our resources together to build our own schools. And I know, with Dr. Umar, this solution has been made a mockery of on the internet, but it's a real valuable solution. It's a real viable solution for our people. We should build our own schools, big and small, to serve and teach our kids. Because without that, we don't produce the Malcolms that we're waiting for. We don't produce the Garveys we're waiting for. We don't produce the Ida B. Wells, the Asada Shakurs. We don't produce them unless we have schools, unless we have educational infrastructures to produce kids like that. You need a school full of Mr. Scotts to produce more. I'm not trying to say I'm up there, but more men and women that were inspired to do this work, like myself. So that's what I would say is the major issues: the issue of miseducation, issue of drugs, issue of violence, but it's also issues of a government that's all black. On the state level, on the local level, it's all black. And you would think that make the situation better, but it makes it worse because it's hard to get people to see that the government is not working in their best interest if the government also look just like us. And so it's a real difficult political dilemma with organizing on the ground when it comes to locally, because people don't like to think as black people as the enemy. And so with the fact that our elected officials are the same color as us confuses us, and that is, that's used as a weapon against us by those elected officials to do nothing for the people. So those are the dilemmas that we face in Baltimore City. And the question of how can people help is, I would say, support organizations that are on the ground, support Tendea Family, support PLM, Pan-African Liberation Movement, support organizations like We Are Us that's doing Stop the Violence work. Just support organizations that you see doing the work that you feel needs to be done financially. And if you can't support them financially, then I would say, go to that city and put boots on the ground with them. Or lastly, which is my favorite option, become a member of that organization. I know excellent organizations in Baltimore City and around the country that are doing great work and could do greater work, but they're not well manned. We got organizations with 6 and 7 people. How can they do the work on the level that they need to do the work when we won't join them, but we criticize them from the sidelines? So I would say you either support those organizations through fund them because they can't fund themselves, support them by volunteering, or become a member of those organizations so that they can expand the work that they're doing and make a greater and greater impact on our community.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Most definitely support this Tendea family. And we most definitely, the George Jackson Grassroots Collective, will be donating to these brothers and sisters, these kings and queens, because they are boots on the ground. They are a grassroots organization with boots on the ground. As you talked about elected officials, and you talked about, different politicians and things of that nature. I would like to know, Chairman, how do you feel about the electoral process when it comes to, let's just say, the presidency, and let's also talk a little bit of local politics as well when it comes to that electoral process.
Man, great questions. Speaking of the presidential process that everyone's talking about right now, anyway, I think Black people, anybody that's listening, whether it's vote or not vote, you could do what you will. But from I would say my personal perspective is that until Black people have the political infrastructure to influence and impact the electoral process in a way that the outcomes and the results of those elections and who those politicians work for in our favor, then it makes no sense that we participate. I think whether participating or not participating, it don't make a big dent either way. Black people need to have organizational, like I said, infrastructure to be able to influence these politicians to do what we would like them to do. And then we also need the ability to hold these politicians accountable. You know, back in the day, if whether you was a local politician or whatever, the Black Panther Party had built the infrastructure to be able to knock on your door and say, yo, you know, we need this, that, and the third, or else. And Black people, we don't have the ability to affect their funding. We don't have the ability to affect them in their decision making. We don't have the ability to influence the policies that they create either way. And so we got now elected officials talking about their collard greens recipe. We got elected officials that are placating to us in doing these symbolic gestures to mobilize our vote, because people don't really take us seriously and don't have to take us seriously because there's no or else attached. Whether it's a physical or else, whether it is a structural or else, we don't have an or else. Even Martin Luther King, no matter what people think about them, the SCLC had an or else. SNCC and CORE, they had an or else during that time. Today, we don't have an or else. And because we don't have an or else, the presidential election, anything that gets done for us, no matter who's elected, it'll be happenstance. Happenstance at best. And so I think we need to lose faith in the electoral process in general and begin to organize ourselves to be able to move those folks no matter who they are. And if we can't move them, then we move them on out. So that's my position on presidential politics. But local politics, speaking of local politics, when it comes to local politics, man, I think there has to be relationships between grassroots organizers and these elected officials on a local level. Because these elected officials, we can do more to influence them. We can do more to impact them. We can do more to blast them and force them as we continue to build, local power. But we know them, and you know where they live, and you know who they hang out with and where they hang out with at. So there's more you could do with that. But I still wouldn't put too much faith in them, because any of these folks that's related to the electoral process and electoral government, man, they got their loyalties are grounded in the Democratic Party or the Republican Party, whether it's even on a local level. So it's hard to influence and impact these people, no matter if it's state election, local election, presidential election. And so I would just say for all the people out there, we don't have to come together every 4 years to elect or do whatever for these folks. In all these years in between elections, we need to be organizing politically, socially, morally, economically, educationally, organizing ourselves so that we have the unified power to do something no matter who gets elected. So that would be my position when it comes to local elections, but also presidential elections. they want to be the grassroots organization. And so when you think about the Black Panther Party, and I'll answer, you think about the Black Panther Party, we talk a lot about, or other organizations during the 60s, we talk a lot about, oppression and repression, COINTELPRO, agent provocateurs. But what we don't talk about is concessions, is that the government integrated the Breakfast for Children program so that to neutralize the Black Panther Party, that the mayor in Baltimore City does a community cleanup every year to neutralize organizations that do community cleanups. Even if that's not the conscious thought, the the mayor in Baltimore City does a back to school giveaway to neutralize the organizations that will mobilize people to do that type of thing. So concessions, and they're trinkets to give you a little bit of something to say that you don't really need Tendea family.
What challenges, if any, have you faced when conducting your after-school patrol, and how was it regulated?
What challenges, if any? Tendea family, based on our organizational principles, believe that it's the duty of Black men specifically, but Black men and women in general, to protect Black children. It's our absolute duty to protect Black children. It don't matter if those Black children come from us directly or not. And so when we got out there to do the after school patrol program, we didn't ask permission from anybody. These are our kids. And so we got out there to protect our kids. And the only challenges that we faced was from Black people, sometimes in the community, because organized Black people is sometimes threatening to people that's doing stuff in the streets. If you are organized Black men, and let's say it's 20 of us, and we organize and we fighting to protect these kids, and if you trying to recruit some of these kids to the streets, or you see this as your neighborhood, then just seeing us in all Black and walking around your neighborhood, though we coming in love, could be threatening. And so we face some of those challenges. We've broken up fights with kids. We've prevented stuff from happening, but those are not even really the things that are that big. That's just par for the course. That's part of the work. But the things that we didn't expect is the backlash. I would say the backlash is the negative energy that you get from Black males that are on the other side of what we're doing. And we come to serve and change them too. But you know, we've been conditioned to think we all each other the enemy. Now, some people, I would say, sister, over time, by seeing Tendea and seeing how consistent we are, we've won over. By seeing us day in and day out, they say, man, I didn't know what y'all was up to, but now, man, I trust and know y'all. But other people, they know they're not doing kids out here right. They're not doing our people out here right.
Knowing that, a lot of these mass movements, you know, women stood behind the Black Panther Party and its leaders, how important of a role and what role do women play, in the movement?
Definitely, that's a great question. So, yeah, peace, Sean. And so, Asada Shakur said a woman's place is in the struggle. And so Tendea fully subscribes to that. That in Tendea family, we have a Duafe sisterhood, and I'd be remiss if I didn't acknowledge the leadership of Lady Captain Tyson of the Duafe sisterhood, and the work that they do to fight for Black women and girls, but also fight for the community. And so, keep quiet. My son in the background trying to talk. Anyways, so the role that the Wafe sisterhood and Black women in Tendea family play in the work is right alongside men. We do push men in Tendea family to the forefront of protecting. We do push men in Tendea family to the forefront of playing a protective role. But in the Tendea family, women run the sisters dinner, women run community events, women speak at events. There's spokeswomen in Tendea family. They teach and guide, but they do the same work that we do, but men do play a greater protective role in Tendea family. And so, yeah, for us, we believe. My bad. If you're hearing the 12 o'clock, boys. Bad family. Chairman live in the trenches. So yeah. If that answers your question, Sean, or just highlights of the Duafe Sisterhood, who does excellent work within the organization, but within the community. And their work affects community, but they do focus and has a great emphasis on Black women, girls, and family. In the same way that the Coben Brotherhood inside Tendea family has a great focus on Black boys, Black men, and the Black family. And so, yeah, it's complementary roles. But I will speak real quickly to like why, unlike the Black Panther Party, Tendea family has Black men play a greater protective role in Tendea family. Is because we feel that Black men have a duty to protect. That's one community. But then also that Black women are so valuable that men should be willing to die. Sometimes we go back to African history and say, man, Yaa Asantewaa, man, like she did great work, man. She was an African warrior. But what people really forget is that Yaa Asantewaa said, since the men won't fight, we the women will. It wasn't that Yaa Asantewaa just ran out on the battlefield and was like, yo, we the women, let's fight. Yaa Asantewaa ran out on that battlefield because the Black men of that society wouldn't fight. And so we in Tendea family push Black men, train Black men, guide Black men to fight, to protect their community. And it's not like Black women don't get that training. That training is open for self-defense and all that type of stuff. That training is open to Black women. But we're real clear that it's the duty of Black men to protect community. And so we push them to a great extent to do so. We leading on the forefront of destroying our community. When you look at the street tribes that ain't doing what they're supposed to do, otherwise known as gangs, we're on the forefront of destroying our community and being predators to and attackers of our community, right in concert with the government and what they're doing to us. Why shouldn't we as Black men play a great role in being the agents that protect our community and uplift our community as far as the protective role? So that is something that is unique and different, I would say, about Tendea family. But hopefully I hit about women. Yeah.
Free to land. You most definitely did. We have another question from Jelani, please, sir. I also want to bring up Queen Mother Moore, and I suggest all you women look her up and study her. She was one of the most revolutionary women within the organization who taught RAM, who taught a lot of people how to organize and things of that nature. She even held Marcus Garvey down when she came to her town in Louisiana. Queen Mother Moore told all her whole organization, her cadre, her indigenous people in her town to get their guns. Everybody had guns. Queen Mother Moore had 2 guns and leading the march to let Marcus Garvey participate in a demonstration, a speech demonstration to the people, because white supremacy during that time in Louisiana didn't want him there. But Queen Mother Moore stood up and said, "Hey man, hey, we got these guns, and y'all people ain't gonna say nothing when Marcus Garvey comes in. We gonna assert our right to self-determination if you don't let that man speak." And that's what Queen Mother Moore did. She did it until she was almost 80 or something years old. So yes, woman plays a major part in our liberation. Everybody will watch this over and over again and see how a progressive, youthful organization is functioning in this modern time. And we will hope to cultivate influence more people to join this fight. And all I want to say is free the land, free the land.